My name is Daniel, and this story began during one of the darkest and most confusing times of my life. I was 16 years old when my mother passed away. Before that terrible day, my life had always felt safe and peaceful. My mother was a warm and gentle woman who filled our small house with kindness and laughter. Even after long and difficult days, she always knew how to make my father smile again. She brought light into every room she entered. But when she died, everything changed. The house that once felt warm suddenly became cold and silent. The kitchen no longer smelled like fresh food or coffee in the mornings. The music my mother used to play disappeared. Every corner of the house reminded me of her absence. My father changed too. He became quiet and distant. Most evenings, he sat alone in the living room staring at old photographs with sadness in his eyes. For almost a year, it was only the two of us living together. During that time, I tried my best to stay strong. I helped clean the house, cooked simple meals, and handled small responsibilities that my mother used to manage. I knew my father was suffering deeply, and I did not want to make life harder for him. Still, there were many nights when I lay awake in bed, missing my mother so much that my chest hurt. Then one evening, everything began to change again. My father called me into the living room after dinner. His voice sounded serious, which immediately made me nervous. He sat quietly for a moment before speaking. "Daniel," he said slowly, "there's something important I need to tell you." I sat across from him, trying to prepare myself for whatever was coming. "I've met someone," he continued. At first, I did not understand what he meant. Then slowly, the meaning became clear. "You mean a woman?" I asked quietly. My father nodded. "Her name was Laura." He explained that they had met at a bookstore in town where Laura worked as a manager. At first, they only spoke casually whenever he visited the shop, but over time, their conversations became longer. Eventually, they started meeting outside the bookstore for coffee and dinner. "I didn't expect this to happen," my father admitted. "But she helped me feel alive again." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me understood that my father deserved happiness after everything we had lost. But another part of me felt uncomfortable. The thought of another woman entering our family felt strange and painful. A few weeks later, I met Laura for the first time. She came to our house on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I still remember standing near the front door while my father introduced us. "Daniel, this is Laura." Laura smiled warmly and extended her hand. "It's very nice to finally meet you," she said gently. She looked elegant but simple. Her dark brown hair was tied neatly behind her head, and her calm gray eyes seemed kind and thoughtful. Her voice was soft and friendly. Still, I felt nervous around her. I shook her hand politely but said very little during lunch. Laura tried to start conversations with me. She asked about school, my hobbies, and the books I liked reading. I answered with short sentences. I wasn't trying to be rude. I simply didn't know how to act around her. Meanwhile, my father looked happier than he had in many months. He smiled more. He laughed again. For the first time since my mother's death, there was life in his eyes. Over the next several months, Laura became a regular part of our lives. She often visited the house, helped prepare dinner, and brought homemade desserts. Gradually, she became part of our daily routine. Then one evening, my father shared another important announcement. Laura and I are getting married. The words hit me harder than I expected. I forced a small smile because I didn't want to hurt him, but inside I felt confused and uneasy. I worried that our family would never feel the same again. The wedding was small and simple. Only close relatives and a few friends attended. After that day, Laura officially became my stepmother. Living with her felt strange at first. Every morning, she greeted me cheerfully and prepared breakfast before school. She often asked about my day when I returned home. She truly seemed to be trying her best. But I kept my distance. I told myself that no matter how kind Laura was, she could never replace my real mother. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Slowly, life settled into a new routine. The house no longer felt painfully silent. My father looked happier again. Still, something about Laura puzzled me. Sometimes I noticed small things that felt unusual. She occasionally received phone calls late at night. Whenever the phone rang, she quietly stepped outside to answer it. When she returned, her expression often looked tense and worried. Another time, I saw her sitting at the kitchen table, reading a thick envelope filled with documents. The moment she noticed me entering the room, she quickly hid the papers inside a drawer. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. But the strange moments continued. One afternoon, I came home earlier than usual because my last class had been canceled. As I approached the house, I noticed Laura standing near the front gate, speaking with a man I had never seen before. They seemed deeply focused on their conversation. The man handed Laura a small package. The moment Laura noticed me walking toward them, her reaction changed immediately. She quickly slipped the package into her bag. "Daniel, you're home early," she said casually, though her voice sounded nervous. The man gave me a quick glance before walking away. "Who was that?" I asked. "Oh, just someone from the bookstore," Laura replied quickly. Her answer felt unnatural. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. Why had she hidden the package so quickly? Why had she looked so nervous? Over the next several days, my curiosity grew stronger. I started paying closer attention to Laura's behavior. The more I observed, the more suspicious things I noticed. Sometimes she left the house without explaining where she was going. Other times, she spent hours writing inside a small black notebook that she carefully kept hidden in her study drawer. I began to wonder if she was hiding something serious. One night, while everyone else was asleep, I quietly walked downstairs to get a glass of water. As I passed the hallway, I noticed a faint light coming from Laura's study room. The door was slightly open. Inside, Laura sat at the desk, speaking softly on the phone. "I understand," she whispered, "but we have to be careful. Daniel cannot know about this yet." My heart immediately began pounding. Cannot know about what? I stood frozen in the dark hallway listening carefully. Yes, Laura continued nervously. I promised I would handle everything. Just give me a little more time. Then the call ended. I quickly returned to my bedroom before she could see me. That night, I barely slept at all. My thoughts repeated the same questions again and again. What secret was my stepmother hiding from me? And why did it sound like that secret involved me directly? The next morning, I tried to behave normally during breakfast. Laura cooked eggs while soft music played quietly from the kitchen radio. My father sat reading the newspaper as if everything were perfectly ordinary. But nothing felt ordinary to me anymore. Laura smiled at me. Good morning, Daniel. Did you sleep well? For a moment, I wondered if she somehow knew I had overheard her phone call. I slept fine, I lied. In reality, my mind had been racing all night. Later that day, after school, I returned home and discovered that Laura wasn't there. My father was still at work, leaving the house completely empty and silent. I sat alone in the living room for several minutes thinking carefully. Finally, my curiosity became stronger than my guilt. I decided to search for answers. Slowly, I walked toward Laura's study room. The door was closed but unlocked. After hesitating for a moment, I opened it carefully. The room smelled faintly of perfume and books. Everything inside was perfectly organized. Papers were stacked neatly across the desk, and novels filled the shelves. At first, nothing looked unusual. I opened the desk drawers one by one. The first drawer contained office supplies. The second held envelopes and old receipts. Then I opened the third drawer. Inside was the small black notebook. My heart began beating faster. I knew immediately that this notebook contained secrets. For a moment, I hesitated. Reading someone's private thoughts felt wrong. But my curiosity pushed me forward. I opened the notebook. At first, the pages looked normal. There were shopping lists, reminders, and daily schedules written in careful handwriting. But deeper inside the notebook, the entries became strange. Some pages contained dates, locations, and short notes, such as meeting confirmed, package delivered, next step soon. I frowned in confusion. What kind of meetings were these? Then I reached a page that made my stomach tighten. At the top of the page was my name, Daniel. Underneath, several sentences were written neatly. Daniel is still unaware. Must protect him until the right time. Everything depends on keeping the truth hidden for now. I stared at the words in shock. Protect me from what? What truth? Suddenly, I heard a car outside the house. Laura might be home. Quickly, I closed the notebook and placed it back exactly where I found it. Then I hurried back to the living room. Seconds later, the front door opened. Daniel, are you home? Laura called. Yes, I answered, trying to sound calm. She entered carrying grocery bags and smiled naturally, but now every movement she made seemed suspicious to me. That night, I decided to uncover the truth completely. Around midnight, when the house became silent, I quietly left my bedroom and stood near the hallway window facing the street. Earlier that week, I had noticed Laura leaving the house late at night. Tonight, I wanted to know where she went. 20 minutes later, Laura's bedroom door opened softly. She stepped into the hallway wearing a coat and holding her phone. Then she quietly left the house. Without thinking too much, I followed her. The night air felt cold and empty. Laura walked quickly through several streets before finally stopping near a small closed cafe. A man waited near the corner. Even from far away, I recognized him immediately. He was the same man who had handed Laura the mysterious package earlier that week. I hid behind a parked car and listened carefully. Most of their conversation was too quiet to hear clearly. Then the man suddenly said something that froze me. "Are you sure the boy is ready?" Laura sighed heavily. "No," she replied softly, "but we're running out of time." My chest tightened. They were talking about me. Then the man spoke again. "Soon he will have to know the truth." Laura looked deeply worried. "I promised his mother I would protect him," she whispered. "But I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret." His mother. My mother. My entire body felt cold. Why were they talking about her? Before I could hear more, Laura suddenly turned her head slightly. Panic rushed through me. I quickly moved deeper into the shadows, afraid she had seen me. A few moments later, the conversation ended. The man walked away while Laura slowly returned home. When I finally reached my bedroom later that night, my mind was spinning with confusion. Laura had mentioned my mother. She had promised to protect me. And somehow this mysterious man was connected to everything. For the first time, I began wondering if I had misunderstood Laura completely. Maybe she wasn't hiding something dangerous. Maybe she was protecting something important. The next morning, everything felt different. When I saw Laura making breakfast, I no longer looked at her with suspicion alone. Now I also felt curiosity. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately. Another part feared the truth. Then, during breakfast, Laura suddenly spoke. "Daniel, can we talk later this evening?" Her serious tone made my heart race. Maybe the moment had finally arrived. That evening, my father worked late, leaving only Laura and me at home. She sat quietly in the living room waiting for me. "Please sit down," she said softly. I sat across from her. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, Laura took a deep breath. "I know you've been curious about my behavior," she said carefully. "And I think you may already know more than you should." My eyes widened. "I noticed the notebook had been moved," she continued, "and last night I believe you followed me." Embarrassment filled my face. "I'm sorry," I admitted quietly. To my surprise, Laura did not seem angry. Instead, she looked sad. "It's all right," she said gently. "You deserve to know the truth." She walked to a small cabinet and removed a large envelope. Then she returned and placed it carefully on the table between us. "This secret," she whispered, "belongs to your mother." My chest tightened immediately. "My mother?" Laura nodded slowly. Before your mother died, she discovered something terrible about your father's business. I felt completely stunned. Laura opened the envelope and removed several photographs and documents. One photograph immediately caught my attention. It showed my mother standing beside the mysterious man from the cafe. That man's name is Michael, Laura explained. He was one of your mother's closest friends. Why didn't I ever meet him? I asked. Because your mother was trying to protect you, Laura answered quietly. Then she explained everything. Years earlier, my father had become involved in illegal financial activities connected to dangerous people. At first, my mother knew nothing about it. But after discovering the truth, she became terrified for my safety. She tried convincing my father to stop, but he refused. The money had become too important to him. My mother secretly began collecting evidence with Michael's help. These documents are the evidence she gathered, Laura explained softly. I stared at the papers in disbelief. Then I asked the question that mattered most. How are you involved in all of this? Laura looked down for a moment before answering. Because your mother trusted me. I blinked in shock. You knew my mother? Laura nodded. We worked together at the bookstore many years ago. We became very close friends. Suddenly, everything began making sense. My mother asked me to watch over you, Laura continued. She told me that if anything happened to her, I needed to protect you and reveal the truth when the time was right. Tears slowly formed in my eyes. So, that's why you married my father? Laura shook her head gently. No. At first, I stayed close because of my promise to your mother. But over time, I genuinely began caring about both of you. Her voice sounded honest and sincere. All the secret meetings were about deciding when it would finally be safe to tell you the truth. I looked at the documents again. What happens now? I asked quietly. Laura gave a sad smile. Your father's business activities are already being investigated. The evidence your mother collected will help the authorities understand everything. I sat there silently, overwhelmed by sadness, relief, confusion, and gratitude all at once. For years, my mother had carried this burden alone. And Laura, the woman I had feared and distrusted, had spent all this time protecting me. I'm sorry, I said softly. Laura looked at me gently. For what? For not trusting you. She smiled kindly. That's understandable. Trust takes time. For the first time since she entered our lives, I no longer saw Laura as a stranger. I saw her as someone brave, someone loyal, someone who had kept a difficult promise because she cared about my future. In that moment, I realized something important. Sometimes the people we misunderstand the most are the very people trying hardest to protect us. And sometimes the truth behind a secret is far more complicated than we ever imagine. My stepmother had never been my enemy. She had been my guardian all along.